and they are going to do anything on earth to prevent you. In fact, when one chooses to fight corruption, one must remember that he or she can't be eliminated at all times. And what President Buhari, and indeed any other president in the world, must do is to recruit the population. If the population has been wedded to the idea that corruption is a bad thing, then that is the beginning of the success of that battle. When I see, for example, your former Minister for Petroleum being investigated in the United Kingdom without being a sadist, I'm very happy. Because if you look at the wealth that he is alleged to have accumulated, that is unexplained wealth. Even if he lived for she lived for 1,000 years, she would never make that kind of money. James Ibori, who was prosecuted, convicted, and served sentence in the United Kingdom. What lacks in Africa is punishment. Impunity is alive and well in Africa. And we, the electorate, as I say times without number, are in the business of celebrating thieves. We must stop. Yesterday, Barrister Farana said it very well, that we camouflage theft by giving them nice English names: money laundering, fraud, embezzlement, and all those veneers that make them look as if it is some kind of nice game. Let us call these men and women by name. They are thieves, stealing on an industrial scale. They are murderers. And once we begin to call them like that, and they have a mark of Cain upon their forehead, and we shun them. Has it been done in African countries? Yes, it has been done. And I keep on repeating, in countries such as Tanzania, they are being dealt with. In Rwanda, they are being dealt with. In Mauritius, they are being dealt with. In Botswana, they are being dealt with. Once you begin to deal with them, then the others who may want to behave like them will begin to take the cue. We must, in the nature of things, earn what we earn through the sweat of our brow. That is the only way in which Africa will realize their potential. Many of these individuals who are in positions of leadership in Africa don't want to leave because they are thieves. And they are scared. They are scared that if they left office, they would be prosecuted. And my view is that they should be prosecuted. You know, individuals such as Hissène Habré, who we know what he did, was it in Chad, are a good example to the leadership that impunity will not thrive. Because I've been talking to a friend of mine from the Cameroons who tells me what is happening in their country right now. And other African countries are blind to it. It doesn't even occupy the headlines of the neighboring newspapers, of the country's neighbors' newspapers. Yet the Cameroon now should be in the same position as we see the conflict in Catalan in Spain. Yet we are attacking it in page 13 in newspapers in Nigeria, in Liberia, and other countries. The time has come that Africa must learn and realize that the world is not bothered about Africa. The world is only bothered about Africa when they want to take the resources of Africa. Then they bother. They want oil, they bother. And I'm using the word bother in a very deliberate fashion, not in the traditional orthodox fashion. They bother when they want to take our timber. They bother when they want to take our bauxite, when they want to take our coke, when they want to take our uranium. But they don't bother about us. They come to our continent without disrespecting the elephant, and they want to preserve the elephant so that they can come and watch the elephant. But they don't care if 100 Africans die. They want to preserve our monkeys. They want to preserve our leopards and our other animals, but they don't care about us. To them, Africa is a zoo of sorts. And until the day that we Africans realize that we are on our own, we are going nowhere. And very soon they are going to shut us out, if they have not shut us out already. We'll not go to the United States of America, we'll not go to Europe, and I'm happy that we are being forced to stay in Africa. Let us stay in Africa and build Africa. I mean, what does Africa lack in terms of resources? What do we lack? If it is solar energy, which continent is capable of producing solar energy to light this continent and the entire earth? If it is hydroelectricity, what can we not generate? If it is minerals, if we wanted to make bombs, if we should, where do they get their uranium from? If it is timber, what don't we have? If it is human resources, we are 2 billion of us. And we are people who have intelligence. And yet we are kept in a constant state of conflict. The Europeans, the French persuading their former colonies that they are more French than they are Yoruba. They are more French than they are Wolofs and Mandinkas. The British persuading us that we are more British than we are Ibibio or Yoruba. And of course, when we find ourselves in that schizophrenic state, then we engage in internal conflict and they sell their arms to us. Tell me, which African country makes guns? None. I think Africans must recognize that bad governance is harmful to their very well-being, not only for the current generation, but generations yet to be born. This is a continent that has always had potential. These are a people that have always had potential. But since we regained our independence from the colonialists, African leaders in many countries have consistently demonstrated that they are not working in the interest of their people. And that is sad, because many of the individuals who occupied positions of leadership are still beholden to the colonial masters. We see former French colonized nations, leaders who are beholden to Paris, those who are colonized by Portugal, beholden to Lisbon, those who are colonized by Belgium, beholden to Brussels, those colonized by the United Kingdom, beholden to London, and the single country that was colonized by Spain, Equatorial Guinea, beholden to Madrid. And this is tragic. Of course, currently, many African leaders are getting beholden to Beijing, and progressively the United States of America in Washington. The net effect is that the African agenda is being sacrificed to the detriment of the peoples. And we have examples which are live as I speak. The problems in the Cameroon, the problems in Togo, the problems in South Sudan, the problem in Central African Republic, in Mali, in Mauritania. And these are sad things. And the tragic thing is that the African Union appears to be helpless in this situation. Africa has been victimized by systems of government which we do not understand and which are not serving us well. And the time is now to wake up and to begin to find African solutions to African problems. Is it doable? Yes, it is. But we must wake up from our slumber, because those who are in positions of leadership are quite comfortable with the situation as it is. We must have something in the nature of an Arab Spring. The Arab streets woke up and they told their leaders, you are going to do that which is in our best interest. Unfortunately, some of the gains made after the Arab Spring have been clawed back. And that is a lesson for us, that if you regain your independence, you must remain eternally vigilant, because the forces of reaction are very persistent. You know what is amazing about the African Union, which is the immediate success of the OAU, is that it's beginning to let Africa down. I was amazed about a month ago when Zimbabwean president, whom I respected in his early days as a freedom fighter and as a man of vision and intellect, when he went to the African Union and made a donation of $1 million, and the African Union accepted it, in a situation where the people in Zimbabwe are suffering, where there is almost 80 to 90% unemployment. And the reason why the African Union has become, as you rightly say, a toothless bulldog is because there are no leaders who are true crusaders for the agenda of the African Union in the manner that we had in the early days when we had Nkrumah, when we had Nyerere, when we had Haile Selassie, when we had Gamal Abdel Nasser. Today, in a very perverted concept of non-interference in the affairs of other nations, and in a perverted understanding of the idea of sovereignty, people are not their brothers and sisters keepers, so that we know that there is a festering wound in South Sudan, and we are doing nothing about it. We know there is a festering wound in the Cameroons, and we are doing nothing about it. A festering wound in Togo, and we are doing nothing about it. And even when the leaders congregate in Addis Ababa for their annual jamboree, they don't discuss these problems. Right now, I would have thought that there should be an extraordinary session of the African Union to discuss a number of things, to discuss the countries which are in trouble, and I'm mentioning them ad nauseum, to ask the question, what is the problem in the Central African Republic? How can it be resolved? What is the problem in Togo, in Gambia, in the Cameroons, and in many other countries, so that we have African solutions to African problems? Because what we'll see very shortly is that the UN will sit down and send a peacekeeping force. And when there is no peace to be kept, and they send peacekeeping forces, when, in a manner of speaking, the horse will have bolted away. So the African Union is very disappointing. When Dr. Mahamat was appointed as the chairman of the commission, I thought that this was a new person that would come with new energy to replace Nkosana and Lamini Zuma. But what I see is lethargy. What I see is lack of enthusiasm. What I see is lack of direction. What I see is continued pain. I was amazed about a month ago, if I'm not wrong, when the international community asked the African Union to nominate a country to sit in the Security Council, and they nominated the Democratic Republic of Congo. How can you possibly nominate the Democratic Republic of Congo, whose president has refused to hold election, whose country is generating refugees, whose government is controlling Kinshasa only in real terms, and where there is conflict everywhere, and where the resources are being taken away by the Chinese, the Malaysians, and the Belgians, and other rogue individuals from Europe and America, and you nominate such a person? You nominate a hyena to sit in an assembly which is judging how goats should be preserved? It is a tragedy of gigantic proportion, and we consistently do this in Africa, and we think is normal. Africa has now normalized the absurd, and we think that sense is what we do, yet it is nonsense. And unfortunately, many of us who are not in positions of influence, our younger generation particularly, think that this does not matter. This matters. If you look at the history of revolutions, it was always the young people. As early as 1908 in Turkey, it is the young people who came up to rise up against the dictatorial regime. We remember even during the Bolshevik Revolution, it was the young people. We remember during the civil rights movement led by Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abernathy, among others, it was young people. In 1968 in France, when there was a problem, initially in 1958 and 1968, it was young people. We remember in Tiananmen Square, it was young people. We remember in Korea in 1908, it was the young people. In South Africa, in the Sharpeville massacre in 1969, it was the young people. In Soweto in 1976, it was the young people. In the Arab world, it's the young people. But our young people in Africa today are imprisoned by Arsenal and Manchester United and Barcelona and Real Madrid, and our young girls are imprisoned by cheap South American soap operas and Beyonce Knowles. How can that be? How can a continent be so accursed that our young people have no sense of our history, no sense of our presence, no sense of our future? No wonder the Chinese are conquering us by the day. And we are wondering. John F. Kennedy said in 1960, a society whose young men and women are in a constant state of slumber will never realize our potential. Our young people must wake up. It is only the day that they wake up that they will be able to send a clear message to those in positions of leadership that you cannot continue to misgovern us. I look forward to those days. I have mentioned President Muhammadu Buhari fondly in a number of forums, but remember that President Muhammadu Buhari came into office and has been unwell. And therefore, he is not performing at full throttle because of sickness. And you must remember that when the captain is unwell, even if there is another captain who replaces him, the ship does not move with the steadiness that it deserves. Remember that the president of the United Republic of the Federal Republic of Nigeria inherited a system that was rotten to the core. Rotten because of corruption. In fact, he campaigned and won the elections on the promise that he would fight misgovernance and corruption. And I have no doubt in my mind that those who are corrupt, when he is away and unwell in the United Kingdom, they celebrate, say, this is our turn. They fight back, so that there is a sense in which he needs support. It is not lost on me that his Vice President Osinbajo has tried to support. But when you are in an acting capacity, there is a limit beyond which you cannot go, lest your president think that you are beginning to undermine him. I wish your president Godspeed in recovery, and also that he institutionalizes and ensures that his agenda is bought by the others. There must be a buy-in. If you look at the whole concept of religion, even if you want to give it a spiritual dimension, in the Christian religion, Christ had a message from heaven, but he sold it to 12 others, and there was a buy-in. And that buy-in is what has seen Christianity spread over a period of 2,000 years. The Prophet Muhammad had an agenda. He said he went to the mountains and he was told, Ikra, read, and he read and came back with the agenda, and he sold it. He tried to sell it in Mecca, it didn't sell very well. He went to Medina, sold it to his Sahabas, and ultimately Islam spread. In other words, what I'm trying to say, that throughout the ages, no matter how good your idea is, that idea must be sold to others, they must buy into it, and that is how you institutionalize the idea. You cannot be a lone warrior in this matter, because the children of darkness hunt like a pack of wolves, and they will devour you if you are alone.
Good afternoon, viewers. I want to take a few minutes in the Africa School of Thought. I want to say a few points regarding the situation of the Chief Justice in the Republic of Kenya. The Chief Justice is part of the governance of the people of Kenya. He is one arm of the governance of the Republic of Kenya. The Chief Justice has never convened or tried to convene a meeting between the President, the Speaker of National Assembly, and himself to find out the weakest link in the fight in the governance of the people of Kenya. It is therefore very shameful for the whole Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya to use a platform, external platform, to announce a regime change proceeds using the platforms of international civil society to dismember the government of the Republic of Kenya. As a Pan-African, I feel sorry and saddened by the events that are taking place in the judiciary of the Republic of Kenya. The president or the executive has done its best. It has given the funding that is needed to fight corruption. Every time the agencies that fight corruption arrange, indict, and deliver a suspect in the courts of the Republic of Kenya, the same judiciary that the Chief Justice represents, the same judiciary that the Chief Justice says it is very perfect, releases these people, at times on flimsy reasons, blocks the route of justice, obstructs justice. The case of the former Deputy Chief Justice, Lady Muiru, who was found who should have taken a plea, but because of the problems that the judiciary has and the weaknesses, the incompetences that the judiciary has, the Lady Justice Muiru was allowed to petition the DCI and DPP's application and a charge. She never took a charge, a plea in the normal courts. Of course, the events are much bigger than what we see today. It is sorry state that the Chief Justice is the one who can mention about the failure, yet the word failure is actually associated with the judiciary of the Republic of Kenya. Everybody in the judiciary knows, every Kenyan, young or old, knows that there is a problem with the Chief Justice. I take one example. For the Chief Justice to talk about the nullified elections, that dynasties collect themselves in kingdoms, in business entrepreneurs win an election, shows to you that he has something that is against the current administration of President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. I therefore call upon the international community not to listen to the side that actually weakened the fight against corruption in Kenya, but help the Kenyan people to fight corruption. Because the weakest link, which all of us know, is the judiciary in Kenya. If the Chief Justice was pleasing the civil society funders, the NGOs that gathered in Oxford, let them hear this message, that it is him and him alone. It is his incompetency, the lack of direction, the lack of leadership, the poor leadership qualities, the lack of pointing out the mistakes in law. The law itself that the Chief Justice talks about is the one to recommend which type of law. He can also suggest to the three-armed we are going to look later on at the legacy of President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. What legacy does he leave behind for the people of Kenya? He has exactly 2 years and some months ahead to 2022. But what legacy will he leave behind? That's what we want to discuss this afternoon, this morning and part of the afternoon. Our staff are not in at the moment, but we are making sure that we keep the programs and go through, discuss matters that affect Africa as we sit here, watch and see and listen to the entire world, what is happening and what else is taking place in the entire African continent. Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you and God bless you. Wherever you are, this is Punchline Africa Television. First, I will begin with the news that are making rounds worldwide. That is the assassination and the killing of the Iranian Republican Guard commander, Major General Soleiman, who was assassinated by drones while in Baghdad in Iraq. This has picked up worldwide condemnation, jubilations from both sides, each condemning the other. Iran has issued a warning telling people that it will be a matter of all battles. The United States on the other side is celebrating that. One thing that you have to know about the United States of America is that they don't have a policy of forgiveness and forgetting. They don't forgive, they don't forget, they don't give up, they will look for you. You must know if you're a dictator in Africa and you launder money. If you are Mr. Paul Biya and you launder money, they will always haunt you, even if you laundered $1. Those who are practicing corruption in Africa must be very careful with the United States of America, because they will always find you. They will find a place where they will squeeze you. The gentleman who was killed was a very instrumental in the siege of the United States of America embassy in 1979, when it took place in Iran. Remember the war which brought in the revolution that brought in Ayatollah Khomeini, the Ayatollah, the Grand Mullah of Iran, where the Americans had given sanctuary to the Shah of Iran. The Shah of Iran died in exile. Ayatollah Khomeini, who was the founding leader of Iran revolutionary mullah, was in France. He lived in France. And you notice that the French relationship with the Iranians, it is that relationship that has kept America out of bombing. They would have attacked Iran already. But Iran this morning, in a rebuttal statement, they said the people will pay heavily. So here we are, we have two worlds, those that are fronting the situation in against, saying it was wrong for targeted assassination of the Republican Guard commander, Major General Soleiman, on Iraq soil. So it has put Iraq also at the crossroads. But viewers of international politics, that is what it is. Another development on the international scene, before we come to the local scenes of Kenya, is the question of Turkish soldiers coming into Libya to take over control, to stop General Khalifa Haftar from overrunning the government in Tripoli. That is the move, the best move of the year. And I think that African Union must encourage people who can help us practically by sweeping their ships across the Mediterranean Sea into the Libyan harbor, Tripoli, and making sure that Khalifa does not step up to take over the powers in Tripoli. Another development that has taken place is this Al-Shabaab attacks continuing on the Kenyan border in Lamu, and a bus was attacked and 3 people lost their lives, which is part of the bigger conspiracy theories of terrorism that is running around Africa. Somalia still remains the worst place for people in Africa and the worst nation for people to mention, because when you mention Somalia, you mention the evil part of it. We want to take this opportunity to thank the Kenyan troops, the Uganda People's Defense Forces troops that are governing Mogadishu, and the Kismayo KDF and the Ethiopian troops in Balidor, forming what we call AMISOM. Remember, there is a shift, the dynamics of playing politics around that region, that Iran, that United Arab Emirates versus Qatar, they are using their muscle of money to squabble over Somalia. And we as neighbors of Somalia, we have a problem. And that is exactly what it is in this world. We, as people of Africa, we still maintain the African destination. Our Africa is the only home. It is here in Kenya where English language is polished. Swale Kambutu, I think you have nothing in your ears but porridge in your head that you tell me to polish. That is my accent. Every Ugandan will tell you that that's how we speak. And that's why we go to the best universities in the world. And I don't think one of the universities, you might have not gone there and you never go there. And I think the accent to me doesn't matter. It is a matter of I cannot change it to become an American, neither can I change it to become a British. I changed to speak as I am. English was my second language. My language is well known in my country called Uganda. So Swale, don't try it. I am not the one who shot the Iranian. The Iranian was shot by American. If you are annoyed of that, go and tell the Americans. Thank you very much, viewers. And elsewhere in Africa, we have news coming in from Central African Republic. Fighting still there. The conflict is still high. In Amazonia, Paul Biya still eating people, killing people, destroying property. There are children who have never gone to school for 4 years in Amazonia. That is a tragedy of Africa. That is the Africa that we see. That is the Africa that we look at, and today we glorify that same Africa. Thank you very much. That is the Africa in Biafra, across in Nigeria. Biafrans are still under the hammer of General Buhari, who still continues to kill them. He slaughters them. He's all the time telling them what's supposed to be done by killing them instead of giving them freedom. The freedom of expression that you find in Kenya. And we are coming to Kenya next, where you see President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has given people the freedom to even criticize him in his presence. But he has kept cool. He's there, he's still making it sure that he doesn't lose it. The danger of Africa is playing compensational politics. As we shall come on the Kenyan issue, I will explain to you what compensational politics is. The politics is when you grew up from a poor family, and when you reach in the old age, you want to steal everything, including God. It is not very proper politics in Africa. Thank you very much. Elsewhere, We see events on the continent shaping up elections. We saw in Rwanda, Angola, my in-laws are fighting amongst themselves. The arrests and the freezing of accounts of the daughter of Santos. This is something brewing. We can see the drums of conflict in the DRC Congo increasing in the inland of Congo, while in Kinshasa, things seem to be parading in the right direction towards Tshisekedi consolidating power and steering the Congolese, the Democratic Republic of Congo, towards prosperity. I wish him very high marks. I give him the will of God to keep his hand. Remember, Congo is one of the countries in Africa where you come, God comes, cries, but doesn't drop the eyes, the tears. Thank you very much. Elsewhere in South Sudan, I want to encourage the leaders of South Sudan that the time bomb, the days are counting, the time is ticking. The race against time for you to sign the agreement, consolidate it, return it to Juba, Dr. Riek Machar, form a government and accountability, put structures to account for what has happened. That is exactly what the people of Africa want. We want to thank you very much for the 2 weeks that you stayed in Juba. There was some movement that we saw on the peace agreement, and the people of Sudan hope to get peace. South Sudan hope to get peace and have permanent peace, where people, children, women, men have been raped, defiled by both sides of the conflict. So we pray that South Sudan gets the peace that it deserves. Across between Uganda and Rwanda, I will always speak my mind that it's a shame that today the Rwandese cannot go straight into Uganda. We lived together, we fought together, we died together. Today we cannot be having people discriminating the other from entering each country. It is a sad episode that we cannot even imagine what a situation would be if it continues to be the way it is. There are businessmen losing thousands, millions and billions of shillings and of money in dollars going in smoke because they cannot cross over. Factories with fruits in Uganda that were relying on export of these fruits into Rwanda cannot do so. This is something that we should not encourage in Africa. Africa needs an African solution. What is the problem between President Kagame and Museveni? Both of them were rebel leaders. They fought. They liberated their countries in a different capacity. Uganda helped Rwanda to liberate itself. Rwanda accepted that Uganda was our home. The Rwandese take Uganda as our home. Let's see what the differences are there. That in 2020, we want to see a strong East African community built on the basis of unity of purpose. Why are we having these divisions? Africa does not need a division. South of Rwanda, Burundi does not talk to Rwanda. We have troops watchfully watching over towers like the North Korea Peninsula. It is sad for people of Africa, for us to continue to pretend that things are doing well in our regions. Rwandese cannot fly into Uganda, and vice versa. Ugandans go to Rwanda with pain. When you are in a hotel, you are marked as if you have come from planet Venus or Mars. This is something that the people of Africa must always reject. Unity of purpose must prevail. Seek political unity. The economic aspect will arrive when you are all united. That is what Kwame Nkrumah said, and he left a legacy of an African Union that today cannot solve a simple conflict between Rwanda and Uganda. Across in Asmara, we have President Afaki of Eritrea still, tormenting his people. What can we do? Africa needs to stand up to change their behavior. Several elections next year, this year and next year in Tanzania, we shall have an election. The pressure, the temperatures are rising. We see CCM took all the elections of local councils and the opposition boycotted. So we watch as this year goes into this other half, elections results will be counted from Tanzania and the rest of other African countries. Down south in Zimbabwe, we have regime change. A regime change that is imminent. It is seen as a basis of changing leaders in Africa. Leaders in Africa are being changed through a regime change sponsored by George Soros. Mr. George Soros does sponsor this type of regime change by giving the opposition money to actually, mount up a very serious attacks against the people of Africa and elsewhere where he has used the money to these member states. In Rwanda, on 16th of January, we shall have an African cultural conference where cultural participants, over 2,000 participants from Africa and 68 countries all over the world will meet to discuss the cultural aspect of the international community, on the cultures, how they intermarry, how they have brought up the unity that we see in the world. In Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood, they have joined hands with the opposition leader who was an army contractor, and they seem to be saying it has agreed to cooperate with Muhammad Ali, a new opposition leader. The movement forms a turning point for the Muslim Brotherhood, in contrast with the approach during the last 6 years by which they are accused of causing rift among Egyptian opposition. So the Muslim Brotherhood has no leader because the leader died in prison, and therefore they seem to be going towards the other side and shaking hands with the opposition to make a formidable opposition to challenge General Ali Assisi of Egypt. Namibia, Africa seems is becoming the oil focus, the focus for the oil resources. Namibia also has now found oil, and I remember the Kavango Basin Reconnaissance of Africa says the Kavango Basin has got some oil, and that you can see it will not take long before the French Total Oil and other people arrive there. Thank you very much, viewers. This is Pan-African Station. This is Matsanga, Africa Perspective, looking at African Roundup, News Roundup. And if I have forgotten any other thing about Africa, you can always get in touch with me and tell me what I have forgotten. If you have any news on Africa, from Africa, send them to us. Our numbers are on the screen, and you can always not miss anything that you want to see in Africa this year. Thank you very much. We wish you a good year also. Now let me come to the subject of today. Yesterday, it was a great day both in Kenya and Africa. The legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta 2.5 years left. What will be left? What will be there? What can President Uhuru Kenyatta do and not do? What can form this basis of creating a long-lasting legacy? President Uhuru Kenyatta put up a 4 agenda, an agenda for the big 4: housing, food security, industries and manufacturing, and above all, universal health care. But 2 years after he has done so, he seemed to have fallen a victim of the same forces that have always put Kenya back or pulled Kenya's development back. He seemed to have fallen a victim of his own party that has started early campaigns to destroy the basis, the foundation that he was laying down for the future generation. But President Uhuru Kenyatta has not given up. When you see in Africa, what creates conflicts is compensational politics. Today, this morning, I was writing at 4 a.m. an article. What is compensational politics? The compensational politics is the politics growing, which is inbuilt in brain, in our blood. You grow up from a poor family. You sell, you dig latrines, get school fees to go and study. But when you reach the apex of your study, you go through hardship. And what do? You now start compensating for any job that you get, because you remember what you went through. This type of politics in Africa is what is killing, tearing most of the countries today. The African people seem to have forgotten the art of working hard. The art of working hard does not give you the art of compensation in the future. If you have really seen how to work hard and you get what you want at the top, why do you steal? Why do you steal? Why do you steal? Mr. Buhari fought in the Nigerian war, 1966-67. He was one of the commanders with General Yakubu Gowon. But when he lost power, he grabbed it. He again lost power. And I came back in another format as a leader of opposition. Stayed for opposition until he won an election from Jonathan Goodluck. Goodluck Jonathan. But the manner in which General Buhari has played the compensational politics by grabbing is what worries every Nigerian. Compensational politics is because I missed the shoes, I missed the trousers, I missed the good food, I missed this, I missed traveling by air, I must grab a plane so that I can compensate the hours that I missed flying. How long will this type of politics go on in Africa? The questions remain with you people, the people watching. Yesterday, one MP in Kenya attacked President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta in a public display of belittlement. He belittled everybody. He belittled the president. The president is a symbol of national unity. Why do you belittle him? Why do you belittle him? I have written a long statement that Alice Wahome can read, and more other people reactions are being done. We want to say, in the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta, what is it that you can get one item that the president, this is the question, what item do you want the president of Republic of Kenya to pick and make sure that he leaves a legacy? Keep thinking. When we come back tomorrow, and probably on Monday or Sunday, when we shall begin our shows, we shall be able to dissect the truth. Thank you. Today, thousands and thousands of Africans and many countries in Africa have conflicts. Notably, from Libya, Cameroon, Nigeria, Biafra, and the Boko Haram, to Democratic Republic of Congo, of where we have seen a resurgence of the past military and conflicts coming back in that country. Hundreds and hundreds of people have been displaced, killed, maimed, tortured, raped, several of them dying of hunger, starvation, and other natural causes. The fighting seems not to be ending. For the sake of Libya, the Libyan recognized international government is under siege in Tripoli from another faction recognized by Egypt, France, UAE, and other countries. Whereas the one in Tripoli is recognized by the UN, it has been bombarded, has been strangulated, and many millions of Libyans are dying of hunger, lack of water. The water system has been cut off. The bombardment goes on. In Democratic Republic of Congo, we've seen more of active rebel activities returning to the region after some silence has been observed. When we come to Cameroon, we see millions and millions of Amazonians slaughtered. Yet, when you come to Biafra, again millions and hundreds of millions and millions are worried, displaced, tortured by the Buhari regime. Yet again in the north, we see Boko Haram killing, maiming, abducting, and burning down villages in the same Nigeria. When you cross over to Central African Republic, the same is the history that has littered Africa. While all these events are taking shape, Africa is silent. Africa is not making enough efforts to find a solution to what is causing the problems in Libya, in DRC, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, Biafra, and now you add in Khartoum, Sudan. As people die, the people of Africa have no answers, have no solutions. There is nothing to bring an end to the conflicts that have killed Africa. We seem to be new ones manufactured, old ones reignited, encouragement coming from external powers. One power that has been seen in the shadows of all these conflicts especially the one of Libya, that has escalated in the Sahara region of Africa, is France. When you come to Democratic Republic of Congo, the same country is in the shadows. The war can be seen is France. When you come to Cameroon, in Amazonia, the one behind that has the key to bringing peace is France. Therefore, our question as Africans, why are we silent? Why are we not saying enough is enough of the wars? Thank you.